I wanted to give everyone kind of an idea of what's going on here with the weather coming up, especially for Sunday and Monday. I'm using all the graphics that we have at the office that's on the website. So, yeah, a lot of these, if you've looked at the Weather Service office in Gaylord's website recently, at least as of 11 o'clock this morning or a little bit later, you'll see a lot of these same graphics. So I'm just taking stuff off the situation report. A lot of these graphics are incorporated into some of our other social media graphics, so I didn't want to be redundant. And I'm going to be not technical, but I'm going to get into some maps later on at the end of this, so you can kind of see how this is going to progress. The main idea, though, is with this system. Let me just turn on my markups here. Whoops. And I want to go to yellow. So the interesting thing here that we've got going is this low pressure system. As this arrow kind of signifies, this is at least a projected path of it. Several of the computer models have come in with that. There is another one one of the computer models is trying to do this. And I think another one is actually trying to go this way. I need to use a different color. And so there is a spread in the way that these computer models are going. See if I can just change colors here. And this spread between these computer models, that didn't seem to help out much better. Of course, I've got it in highlighter mode. The big thing with them right now is that if it's over here on this side, you're going to get more cold air getting in here, which means there'll be more snow that would actually be in our region. And then if you're over on this side, then you're looking at mostly rain, at least initially on Sunday into Monday, before the low moves off and gets rid of everything. The basic thing is that we really have to watch out for is the uncertainty that we've got going right now is this spread between the models, which, like I said, this one would mean that this blue edge is back a little farther, and this would mean that the blue edge where the snow starts would be a little bit more into northern Michigan. But you can see a lot of the stuff that we're talking about. We're looking at strong winds, rain changing to snow. That'll be on Monday. Structures are at risk. Slick roads developing. Could have some isolated power outages because we'll talk about that in a little bit. We were looking at winds to 50 miles an hour possibly, and then lakeshore flooding. Just to kind of give you, as I was saying, this is going to give us high winds. That's probably the big thing coming out of this. The snow amounts are not all that impressive. And so we're not looking at anything big. Something plowable maybe, like they'll have to get the plows out and actually plow the roads. But nothing that's so out of the ordinary that it would cause a lot of impacts. It's going to be these winds. So like I've talked about in a lot of this already. So some of the things just to kind of highlight in the hazards, we were talking about the gusts of 35 to 45 will be common, as high as 50. The rain showers, Sunday through early Monday, they'll transition to snow from west to east through the day on Monday. There are accumulations expected, but we're not expecting anything really large. Strong winds will probably be somewhere on Monday once the low gets past us and persist through Monday night. And as we said, the rain to snow transition is going to be during that day as the colder air starts to filter in. Mainly, a lot of the impacts that we're expecting around the area are going to be temporary structures by strong gusty winds, some of the accumulating snow, because this will probably be a wet snow with this system. So that could cause some power issues, because if you get the heavier wet snow that kind of sticks onto the power lines and then you get these strong winds, that can have a tendency to really take down power lines. And so we have that issue to contend with as well. And we got medium to high confidence at this point with the timing and location. As I was working the other night, the models were starting to come together. So there was a better chance for this stuff to for us to get it right early. But it's hard to tell. Sometimes these models, they start to kind of wave back and forth on what they're expecting the atmosphere to do at that point. So we'll see how this turns out. But that there is some, it's a little bit higher confidence than what we had a couple nights ago. Just to give you an idea, we were talking about the winds. So along the lake shores is where we're expecting the biggest ones. And since the wind itself is going to be on the back side of the low, we're expecting these winds to start coming down out of the northwest. And when you start doing that, you'll see a lot of these. You'd think that the highest ones would be right here along the lake shore on Lake Michigan as it impacts coming across. But one of the things that we have found with my 20 years working here is that when you get a northwest wind flow like this, you can get winds right along this edge. And that will actually be higher in some cases than what you would get right along the lake shore over in Lake Michigan. Just to kind of give you this was kind of a gee whiz thing I found on here that a lot of the emergency managers would want, which is what is the chances for this? So our highest potential wind gusts in the time frame for in excess of 40 miles an hour. Just so that we take a look here real quick, the likelihood for 40 miles an hour is in this orange color, and the likelihood for 50 is this red color. So we'll go back real quick. So we're looking at this orange color here. So this is exceeding 40 wind gusts exceeding 40 miles an hour. So we're looking at, this is 40%, 50%, 70%. So people will ask us, well, what does that mean? Well, you have to think of this in terms of risk, or in a way gambling, if you're familiar with playing the odds. So the higher the chance, the more likely that something's going to happen. We're expecting about a 40% chance, or almost a 40% chance, right around, let's see here, between noon and 6 a.m. on Monday. So that looks to be, right around 4 p.m. is when we're expecting the peak wind gusts, at least to the 50 mile an hour range. After that, that starts to fall off pretty quickly. The 40 mile an hour peaks probably closer to 6 or 7 o'clock. And we see that a lot of times where you'll get a really strong sense for the wind, and then the gusts kind of start to drop off, but you're still getting those constant 40 or so mile an hour wind gusts, 35 to 40, which is the bulk of what we're expecting. So then as we continue to keep coming down, we get down below the 50% mark here on it, which is right around 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning. So that's just something to keep in mind. With that northwest wind, our biggest concern then becomes right in here for lakeshore flooding. This has been pretty hard hit. I know that several of the counties have been talking about things to do for people over the last 5 or 6 months. You're least likely to get anything along here because the waves are kind of being pushed this direction, but some of it's there will be some beach erosion in that section, especially if the winds are a little bit more, if they were more northwest, then you might actually see it getting into some of those areas. Right now, with the way that we have the winds going, this is the main threat, flood threat for along the lakeshore. Even though there's 3 to 4 foot, usually we see that there's not nearly as much. Plus, the winds are blowing offshore, so that tends to push the water out away from everything. This is tending to pile up the water on the Michigan side of Lake Michigan. We haven't seen a whole lot as far as this southern part of, let's see if we clean this up a little bit. So we haven't necessarily been able to see much evidence of right around in this area of any lakeshore flooding with winds, probably because it's really difficult for the winds to get in there and to really pile up any water down in that general area of Whitefish Bay. Most of it has been down in northwest lower Michigan. All right, I'm gonna change this to red. So here's the low pressure system this morning. That's one of them. This is the one over here, and this are the ones we're watching. This is all the cold air. Oops. This is all the cold air that's going to be pushing all this down, pushing this cold front down into where this low is, which has a nice little dry line going off. You'll be noticing between this low and that dry line, we're going to start seeing some thunderstorms firing up here during the day today. And so they've got, was watching Tim Vasquez's weather lab from last night, and they're looking at severe weather in a lot of this general area down here. It may be a little bit outside of the bounds too, but we'll see. All right, the thing I wanted to show now is the forecast over the next half to 2.5 days. So this is the website of the Weather Service from our Weather Prediction Center. Just to give you a little bit of an idea of what this is, this shows you where the fronts are expected to be by certain times. So 18Z is now at 2 o'clock. 0Z is 8 p.m. So this is 2 o'clock today. So we're coming up on it. It's almost 1 o'clock right now. This area, let me put it in a markup mode so I can show you what's going on here. And we will put it into, let's do blue. No, let's do yellow. Here we go. This will show up all right here. So this yellow, or this green areas, these are the actual forecasts from our forecast grids. And if people aren't aware, we draw or use model data to fill in a lot of these maps now. And so what you see on here is where we think it's going to rain, or at least a chance, and then the darker green is likely and categorical. They do have some other, the hatched area is a thunderstorm chance, and then if it's severe, then it's this dark red color. They might even have something for heavy rain or flooding as well. So that's kind of what we're looking at. This is the snow area up in the mountains, and the green for the rain. Now, if we move on to 8 o'clock, so as we get closer to 8 o'clock tonight, I know it says 0Z Sunday, but it's 8 o'clock Saturday our time locally. The green area is starting to move up into western Michigan, just barely getting into northwest lower Michigan, just barely up there by Manistee. We get further on into it, the rain chances become much more likely. It starts to push up into our area at 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday. And then at 8 a.m., looks like we still have rain. The cold front's trying to move through, but there is this area, and I'll just put it back into markup mode here. This area of low pressure is going to move up this front as the front's trying to push down all this cold air coming down through it. And that will push the front so that we get to this position at Sunday evening at 8 p.m. So the low is going to continue to move as we were looking at the idea of where it was going to go. the main low is supposed to go up in this general direction, depending on which computer model you believe. And we'll see how this goes. But right now, with what we got, we should be in the rain all night long and on Sunday. And then on Monday, there's the low. And you can still see that the snow is back in central and western upper Michigan. Eastern upper Michigan should stay in the rain, at least what it looks like right now. All of lower Michigan should remain in the rain as well. So that gets us to Monday morning. So this is Monday at 8 a.m. So day 3, which is 12Z on Tuesday, which is 8 a.m. on Tuesday, that low has just continued to move way up there. And we'll just put it in markup mode real quick here. So the low comes up through here and then continues up to just a little bit east of James Bay, this part of Canada here. This is Hudson Bay. This is James Bay here. So this section here by that. By this time, we are well behind the low, and so all of our cold air, and we'll just change the color here, will just be coming down like this. We are expecting a fairly prolonged event of cold air and northwest winds over a still somewhat warm lake. The water temperatures out over Lake Michigan are still running roughly between 34 to 35, 36 degrees. And so with the temperatures that we're going to get at 5,000 feet, which is one of the markers that we use to take a look at what for lake effect snow, we are looking at a lake effect snow occurring in northwest lower Michigan. We're going to have some snow bands. That'll be a little bit drier snow than the system itself, but it's still going to be pretty breezy. It's going to be cold, and we're going to get several inches of snow, and this will probably last at least into Wednesday. This is where the high hasn't quite built in far enough, and in fact, it continues on into Thursday morning. We're still in a northwest flow as the high kind of cuts down south of us, so we'll have to see how this turns out. Day 6, of course, day 6 is now. Oh, there we go. Things do start to dry out and kind of move. The high tries to build in a little bit more, so the winds are a little bit more westerly, and by that time our temperature should be coming up high enough that we should be getting out of the lake effect. But we could have a couple of days there where we end up with a decent amount of lake effect snow. So kind of to sum up everything, it's a pretty strong storm. The main thing is going to be the 35 to 40 mile an hour wind, 35 to 45 mile an hour wind gusts with as high as 50 miles an hour or better. Would not be surprised. We'll definitely have wind advisories out, as well as probably it's possible for the high wind warning, which we don't get very many of around here, but we do from time to time. So with that, I'll see if I can keep everything updated and maybe even do a blog post or two. I'll post this on my website at Northern Michigan Recreational Weather. And then whether it's another video brief or whether it's another or just a blog post, just keep an eye on that. And my Twitter feed, NMIRECWX. Or just follow my Facebook profile. You'll find me there too. Thanks.